Less than a month now to the October 19th BC election. Campaigns are in full swing and voters' decisions taking shape. Among those heading to the polls, first-time voters, young Canadians who have turned 18 since the last election, as well as those who, since the last election, have become Canadian. New Canadian voters with concerns and interests uniquely informed by the cultures and lives that came before they arrived in Canada, but who also, no doubt, share the same concerns and interests with fellow Canadians. In this special, we speak with British Columbians voting for the very first time in Canada about what's shaping their vote. We also speak with members and representatives from diverse Canadian communities in the province about the issues they're keeping an eye out for, and nonpartisan experts about voter turnout. With candidates' campaigns now in full swing, the concerns of British Columbians will take front and center. And given what's turning out to be a tight race between political parties, what may be an unpredictable vote, the new Canadian vote, could very well be a significant one. First, zooming out a bit for a Canada-wide bird's-eye view. Since October 2020, about 1.15 million people across the country have received citizenship, allowing them to vote. This was the time of the last BC election. At the moment, it's unclear as of yet how many new BC voters will head to the polls this October 19th. Zooming into BC now with data from the 2021 census, we know that among the province's population of about 5 million people, 1.4 million are immigrants. That's nearly 30% of British Columbians. This gives us a rough gauge of how many folks could have since received citizenship, counting themselves among first-time voters in this year's provincial election. Data also shows us that most people who have moved to Canada and settled in BC are from India, the Philippines, and China. Again, offering a rough idea of who potential new BC voters are in the upcoming election. Now, the numbers are important, but even more important is the question, how will first-time voters choose British Columbia's next premier? Keeping in mind not just their rich diversity, but also the powerful commonalities they share with fellow Canadians, what will drive their vote once they head to the polls? CityNews took to the streets to ask first-time electors about the interests and issues that will be top of mind leading up to October 19th.
How would you describe the turnout of first-time voters, specifically those who have just received citizenship?
Yes, new Canadians are often very enthusiastic voters, and often where they have come from, there's political repression, elections sometimes not to be trusted if they happen at all. So this is an important constituency, particularly in the Lower Mainland, but increasingly in other towns across the province.
What do you think needs to happen to see the voting rate go up amongst first-time voters with an immigrant background?
Again, I really do think it's outreach. Parties are primarily responsible now for driving turnout through their get out the vote operations. And so they have to take into account that there are new Canadians who may not be as familiar with the process or the issues. So particularly when they're operating on the phone banks, the callbacks to get their voters out, that's where it's really important to have those campaign workers who can reach those voters in their own language.
What impact will the new Canadian vote have on this election?
It could be considerable in some ridings. Again, this election is really going to be turned on those suburban ridings around Vancouver, so Richmond and Surrey, and out into the Fraser Valley. And these are areas where the vast majority of immigrants to BC have tended to settle. So their potential to influence this outcome, if they are reached successfully, is quite significant.
Some great expert insights there and good context from the numbers. Now it's time to get to the heart. Coming up, representatives from diaspora communities in the province tell us about the election issues they're paying attention to and what they expect from provincial party leaders. We also hear directly from some first-time voters on the importance of casting a ballot, including one who describes it as a privilege.
To become Canadian and to be able to vote this time, I think is emotional and empowering.
some of the concerns of first-time voters are unique to their intersecting identities, most are not that much different from fellow Canadians. Where things could differ is in how the political parties engage with first-time voters. Now, no diaspora community is a monolith. Its members cut across generations and ideologies. But is that factored in during campaign season? How best can political parties engage with first-time voters? Heike Kwan and Wendy Fung are with the nonprofit Hong Kong House Cultural Society. They're joining us today to unpack some of the answers to those questions. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
To start things off, if I could get you each to tell a little about yourselves. Heike, if you could tell me a little about yourself as well as HK House.
Yeah, perfect. I'm Heike. I'm a co-founder and organizer with HK House. Our organization helps preserve Hong Konger culture. We build community to help newcomers and longtime Hong Kongers here locally. And we also help them integrate into local society by hosting events, resources, materials, and just providing supports overall.
And Wendy, can you tell us about yourself a little bit as well as HK House?
Yep, my name is Wendy. I joined the team for 3 years now. One thing that I want to talk about is how we're hosting the annual celebration for our community, the Vancouver Hong Kong Fair. This is a very large community event, help us to preserve the culture and also help the newcomers integrating into the local society.
Now we're focusing a lot on first-time voters. Heike, can you tell us how many members of HK House do you think are going to be voting for the first time in this provincial election?
Oh, we even have first-time voters here on our team. Like Wendy is a first-time voter here with us. But what we're seeing in the community is just a huge wave of newcomers, first-time voters, and also returning voters. That's not really captured in the statistics that are eager to participate and vote.
As you mentioned, Wendy, you are said to be a first-time voter. What's going through your mind as you're looking at the campaign getting underway, and what are some of the main issues that are going to be playing into your vote?
I guess it's actually a mix of everything. In terms of feelings, it's a lot of uncertainty and also curiosity. I mean, as a first-time voter, you get to learn so much different things, different local issues, and you have to be actively engaged and involved. And I would say housing affordability and also living, high cost of living would be the major issues that we're concerned, especially for younger generations voters.
Now, Canada, of course, is a very diverse, diverse country with lots of different viewpoints, and even within diaspora communities, there are different viewpoints on different issues. Could you describe some of the issues and concerns for Hong Kong House members and the wider Hong Kong Canadian community in general? How do they overlap, as well as, how do they vary?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everyone lives here, so there are common issues like what Wendy was suggesting. Housing affordability, cost of living, those are huge concerns. But what people don't realize is our community is actually very concerned about crime prevention and public safety. That's actually one of the responses we get a lot of the time, as well as healthcare access and employment and job creation. So those are all things that are top of mind for our community.
And Wendy, would you say the same?
Yeah, I think job market is a huge one. Imagine lots of newcomers, they hold work visa, study visa, and they're struggling to find the right jobs that can sustain their living here. So job market, job creation is a huge topic too.
Even for those returning voters, they're highly skilled. They come back faced with an economic downturn, and they're worried about whether they can actually make a living here.
Now, Heike, from your observations so far, how big do you think the turnout could be when it comes to Hong Kong Canadians voting in this election? And do you think, and we're talking, first-time voters as well as even maybe long-time voters, what do you think the turnout will be? And do you think how political parties engage or change their behavior and how they're engaging with the community, could that impact things?
For sure. What I'm seeing is a highly engaged audience right now. These first-time voters or returning voters are much more tapped into what is happening, and they want to understand the political landscape and are trying to do so. And I see them do this even more than with my mom or with my aunties or longtime voters here. I do see the difference, and they're trying to get as much resources as possible. That's why we've partnered with different Hong Konger organizations to put these resources and education materials out.
Now, Wendy, as a first-time voter, are you decided or undecided on how you're going to vote in this election?
I'm still debating between various candidates. I'm still studying their policies and how they're going to make actionable plans and turn their promises into actions.
And that's what you're seeing across for returning voters and new first-time voters, that they're actively just evaluating and learning. So there's huge opportunities for candidates to reach them.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and for your insight, both of you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
BC is rich in its diversity, and even within the province's diaspora communities is a wide range of experiences and points of view. Today, we speak to Narissa Allen with the Black Business Association of BC and Lester de Guzman with Mabuhay House Society, who will be sharing some of those viewpoints with us in the context of the provincial election and voting for the first time. Narissa, Lester, I know we're just scratching the surface here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Now, to start things off, if I could get you both to sort of talk about your organizations and your members. Narissa, if I could get you to start first.
Certainly. Thank you for having me this morning. My organization is the Black Business Association of BC. We support Black entrepreneurs in BC and across Canada. We have about 1,500 members, and of those, about 30% are newcomers and will be voting for the first time in this upcoming provincial election.
Okay, and Lester, if you can talk to us about your organization and its members.
Hi, thank you, Monica, for having me. Mabuhay House Society is basically an association working together with the provincial government in building the Filipino Cultural Center here in BC. We do have a big community of Filipinos, around 170,000 people that actually is Filipino-Canadian, but the numbers of Filipino-Canadians that are voting for the first time might differ from like 10 to 15% of that number, and so it's one of the biggest community that's growing here in the province, and so it's a big important aspect for the elections for us.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, when it comes to Black Canadians and Filipino Canadian communities, very diverse themselves, if you could talk to us a little bit about members of your organizations, specifically who are voting for the first time, what are some of the top election concerns for them? Lester, if you could start.
We've heard to a lot of our members that basically affordability is the biggest issue when it comes to our, because they're immigrants here and they basically are voting for the first time, affordability of housing, transportation at the same time, like even just grocery, buying stuff for food and for their family and providing that necessity. It is important for them to, affordability is an important issue. Second is healthcare as well. A lot of this first time that are coming here, they don't actually have a family doctor. I even don't have a family doctor just because there's such a shortage when it comes to the family doctors here in BC. And lastly, most likely, it's the job opportunities, because a lot of these people are wanting to build a life, build a career that they actually can be proud and support the Canadian economy.
Okay, and Narissa, if you could tell us a little bit about what members in your group, especially first-time voters, what's sort of top of mind for them?
Yeah, we have over 45,000 Black and African diaspora people here in BC, and we ran a survey recently with regards to what are their top 5 issues and concerns for this upcoming election. Similar to Lester, healthcare is one. People don't have family doctors. You're coming here as a newcomer, you're looking to build a life here, and you can't get your family and yourself a family doctor. Housing, the cost of housing, whether it's to buy housing, the cost of rent, the cost of living, food. People are making decisions between paying rent and utilities and food for their families. These are all really tough choices. Immigration, people are coming and they feel lonely. They get here, they're looking, they come with the expectation of a better life, and the red tape around immigration and feeling settled and finding supports here that are really going to make their life easier are just not there. Those are some of the things that they're really, really concerned about. And one of the more recent things that was brought up is policing. So about 3 days ago, a young newcomer mother was killed by the RCMP, and that leaves questions on to what happened there.
Now, as the campaigning gets underway, what are you both keeping an eye out when it comes to political platforms, also maybe party leadership as well? Lester?
I think for our community, especially for Mabuhay House, we want to make sure that they are reaching out to the leaders itself, because they are the ones that are rooted and grassrooted into the community. When they reach out to the associations, and at the same time, Filipinos have like over 200 associations in BC. When you reach out to them, basically making sure that they are showing up as an authentic self and making sure that they listen to the needs of the community, because it's important for us to learn about those plans. And at the same time, when they articulate those, then it makes it easier for them to relate and also make sure that they have our communities in mind. Another thing that I'm looking into the consistency when it comes to what they said before and what their actions are. That's basically an important aspect for us, at least for the Filipino Canadian community.
Right. Narissa, what are you keeping an eye out as campaigns are getting underway?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a really poignant time for the political parties. We have over 86% of our population who have indicated they're coming to the polls to vote, but 48% of them still are undecided. So now is the time for the parties to come out and tell us what their platforms are. We have identified 5 major issues: entrepreneurship, housing, living costs, healthcare, immigration. What are you going to do to address these issues? How are we going to get more family doctors to support our newcomers in our community? What are you going to do to drive business relationships? How are you going to support the community ongoing, and not just right now, but we don't want to have this conversation again in 4 years. We don't want to have it only around election time. We want to have this as an ongoing relationship where we are working as a community, the governments, communities, to make it better for everyone. I think that transparency is really key. Engagement is really key. We've asked for a budget line in the upcoming provincial budget that is going to be geared towards providing funding for organizations that are doing the work for the government, the work where they're not able to reach the communities, the work where we have boots on the ground and we're doing the work. There should be funding put aside for organizations who are doing that kind of work, and we hope to see that type of engagement in the upcoming platforms when we hear from the various parties.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much, both, for the insight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
That was Narissa Allen with the Black Business Association of BC and Lester de Guzman with Mabuhay House Society, sharing some of the issues that will be top of mind for first-time voters in their organizations. Moving to a new place and taking up citizenship is not an uncommon experience for many in Canada, with recent data showing nearly 1 in 5 people in the country are immigrants. But while the experience is common, it is also layered, challenging, and unique to each newcomer, from the moment they take their oath to when they decide to vote. So what drives the decision-making process? The answers, of course, will vary from person to person. Here, first-time voter Rachel tells Adrian South her story.
To become Canadian and to be able to vote this time, I think is emotional and empowering.
For Rachel Pang, being able to vote in the upcoming provincial election is monumental.
I'm very proud and very honored to have this privilege.
Pang moved to Canada in 2019, fleeing Hong Kong, where she worked as a lawyer and an environmentalist. Officially becoming a Canadian citizen this month, filled with Canadian pride and excited to head to the polls on October 19th.
I experienced firsthand the political oppression there in Hong Kong, and there are still people, political prisoners, sitting in jail, and what they're fighting for, what they were fighting for, is just universal suffrage. So coming from a place that we fought and we, unfortunately to say, we lost, and to see how like freedom just like taken away, it's almost like overnight. So this is why I think voting in a place that people's voices can be heard and it is truly important.
She says she needs to prioritize which policies are most important to her and is reading party platforms to figure out which party she best aligns with, using the party websites as well as AI like ChatGPT to gather information.
Undecided still. The two biggest concern is foreign election interference and then the second one is healthcare.
Pang says the hardest part was finding a family doctor and says it's an issue plaguing far too many British Columbians. And when it comes to the party platforms surrounding healthcare,
I just read, by the way, the platform, and the answers I'm not satisfied by both major parties. I'm not satisfied.
Pang points to things like medical entrance exams and says she has questions for candidates she plans on asking at a town hall for residents from Hong Kong ahead of the election. And her advice to other new Canadians who may be on the fence about casting a ballot:
to vote is a personal and civic responsibility. So even back in the days when I was in Hong Kong, when we had the opportunity to vote, I always feel like, okay, I'm actually, like, this is my duty to vote as a citizen. So it's to participate, right? Yeah. To participate in the society, in the country that I call it home. Canada is my home, and like to participate to try to make it a better place.
From Vancouver, Adrienne South, City News.
Not a long time now till voters head to the polls for the 2024 provincial election in BC, including British Columbians who may be voting for the very first time. While we've heard from some new citizens themselves on what's driving their vote, we know this is only the tip of the iceberg in a province this diverse, where residents come from varied walks of life, contributing to its present and no doubt its future.